What if your television isn't just a box that entertains you? What if it is, in effect, a tuning fork that subtly changes the pitch of your attention, dimming a kind of inner sight you were born with? What if the constant flicker, the curated rhythm of images and voices trains your senses to favor surface signals and, over time, makes deeper perception harder to reach? Television and the frequencies it rides on are our starting image. But what I want to show you is how that image connects to a much older map of the human condition. A map that speaks of origins, of guardians, and of simple embodied signs you can check for yourself. If you're willing to try a short internal check later in this video, stay with me. This will only take a few moments and it's optional. I'll guide you carefully, and you can stop at any point if it feels uncomfortable. Scholars and seekers alike were surprised when a collection of texts surfaced in a jar at Nag Hammadi in 1945. Among those writings is the Gospel of Philip and other documents that some traditions interpret as describing a deeper, experiential path away from dependence on external intermediaries. I'm not here to litigate ancient history or to claim these texts are canonical scripture in the way larger churches define it. What matters for us is that these writings propose a framework. You, they suggest, are not merely an accident of matter, but a fragment of a primordial source, sometimes called the mon or the monad. A creative intelligence fashioned the visible world, and between you and the recognition of your origin, there are patterns, beings or forces the texts call archontes, that act like filters or frequencies, shaping what you notice and what you do not. Put plainly, these traditions talk about an inner knowing that can be recovered. They describe a process of anamnesis, a recollection where the memory of origin awakens in the body and mind. They also name 3 simple, embodied markers, not as theological tests to exclude people, but as a kind of practical verification you can perform on yourself. Those markers correspond in their teaching to origin, perception, and command. I'll explain them carefully in a moment, and then lead you through a safe, optional practice to check for subtle sensations. Before we begin, a word about language. When I use the word frequency here, I am borrowing metaphor from those texts and from how culture works now. I'm not making technical claims about radio waves causing specific brain changes. Think of frequency as a pattern or rhythm that organizes attention and experience, whether that's an ancient mythic pattern or the steady pulse of a streaming schedule. To make this older map useful today, we need to understand 3 conceptual actors. First, the mon or monad, the primordial source, the original ground from which the living spark in you is said to arise. Second, the demiurge, not an invective against anyone, but a metaphor for the architect of a material world that emphasizes separation, roles, and dependence on intermediaries. Third, the archontes, which the texts describe in various ways, as powers, patterns, or frequencies that intervene between the soul and the direct recognition of its origin. In the older language, this sounds dramatic. In contemporary terms, it can read as a description of filters, cultural rhythms, habitual stories, systems of authority, and attention economies that tune you toward what is useful to the machine of society, and away from an immediate inner knowing. Now, apply that map to our present-day landscape. Television, streaming platforms, social feeds, and the broader media environment do not merely deliver content. They train attention. They offer repeated rhythms, predictable emotional arcs, and curated interruptions that teach your nervous system what to expect. Consider the slogan or the short clip that primes you to feel a particular way whenever a certain color or beat appears. Over months and years, those patterns shape what occupies your attention and how easily you can access quieter, interior signals. That's the modern analogy. Archontes as patterns of attention, television and other media as carriers of repeating signals that can dampen the subtle perceptions that lead to inner recognition. This is not a triumphalist condemnation of screens. Technology is neutral in itself. It becomes formative because of how it is used and how much of your time and attention it consumes. The point here is to make visible the mechanism by which distraction becomes domestication. If an ancient teacher warned about intermediaries that keep you from remembering your origin, the contemporary parallel is the economy of attention that insists you keep looking outward for meaning. Recognizing the operation is the first step toward reclaiming some sovereignty of perception. So here is the practical, embodied part, the part you can verify with your own hands and breath. Before you try, please make sure you are sitting comfortably. Do not force anything. If you have any neck or chest conditions, or if touching these places causes pain, simply observe without pressure or skip the practice. Everything that follows is optional, gentle, and designed to be safe. Start by taking 2 slow, natural breaths to settle. Inhale lightly through your nose, feel the soft lift in your ribs, and exhale through your mouth or nose in a way that feels easy. Allow your shoulders to soften. This is only to orient your attention inward, nothing dramatic. Mark 1. Origin. Place the pads of your fingertips gently at the base of your skull, where the back of your head meets the top of your neck. You'll find a subtle ridge and an indentation at that junction. Rest your fingertips there without pressing hard. Notice the temperature of your skin. Do you feel any slight warmth, tingling, or a sense of hollow near the bone? That subtle interior sensation, not a dramatic flash, but a quiet noticing, is all you're looking for. If you feel nothing, that's fine too. The practice is a way to gather evidence, not to prove you belong or don't belong. If touching the base of your skull is uncomfortable for any reason, instead, rest your hand gently along the back of your neck with very light contact, and simply notice the difference between contact and no contact. This is about attention as much as anatomy. Mark 2. Perception. Now turn one hand slightly so your fingers point away from your body. We are interested in the lateral edge of the hand, on the side with the little finger. Between the base of the little finger and the wrist, there is a line along the outside of the palm. With the thumb and forefinger of the other hand, very lightly trace along that edge from the base of the little finger toward the wrist. Move slowly, as if you're trying to read a faint inscription. Pay attention to any change in temperature, a tiny vibration, or a feeling of openness or resistance under the skin. You may notice nothing at all. You may notice a subtle thrum, a prickling, or a sensation like a faint current running along the edge. Any small sensation is valid information. No sensation is not a failure. Again, be gentle. Do not press hard. If your hands are sensitive or you have arthritis or other conditions, simply hover your fingers a finger's breadth above the surface and notice the felt sense in your own awareness. Mark 3. Command. Place the flat of one hand over the center of your chest, slightly above the heart, at the upper part of the breastbone. The center of your sternum, just above where the ribs meet. Do this with kindness. Press only as much as is comfortable, and if it feels unpleasant, rest the hand lightly without pressure. Breathe into the place where your hand rests and notice the quality there. Is there a solidity, a hollow, a warmth, a tension? Some people report a subtle pressure, a sense of alignment, or a small flutter. Others feel calm or nothing in particular. Any of these are acceptable. The practice is to notice rather than to judge. After you have checked these 3 places, sit quietly for a few breaths and allow any impressions to surface. You may find images, memories, emotions, or simply bodily sensations. Let them come and go without grabbing onto them. Now, anticipate what might happen next. Most people report an immediate rush of skeptical thoughts. That was nothing. It's just my circulation. This is silly. I feel nothing. I must be doing it wrong. Those reactions are normal and not a failure. According to the older accounts and what many contemporary practitioners notice, the appearance of doubt, dismissal, or a rapid stream of explanations is itself informative. It is the mind's defense system reasserting its habitual narrative. Imagine a radio station that, when someone starts tuning inward, immediately plays static or a repeated jingle to pull the listener back out. The static is not proof against your experience. It is the predictable behavior of a system invested in maintaining the status quo. When these thoughts arise, treat them as passing weather. Name them if it helps: doubt, explanation, boredom. Notice the tone. Is it loud, urgent, persuasive? You do not have to engage. Observe the thought as if watching a bird fly by. Keep returning your attention softly to your body, to the places you just checked, or to the breath calm you started with. Over time, the insistence of the static may lessen. That does not mean a miraculous eradication of noise, only that awareness can shift the balance. You might also experience emotion: grief, relief, curiosity, embarrassment. All of this is part of an unfolding. It's essential to avoid making grand claims based on a single check. No single sensation proves destiny. The value of this practice is that it offers an embodied intake of information that you can revisit, refine, and integrate over time. If you continue the practice at night, choose a quiet place, reduce screen time beforehand, and approach it as a short 3-step ritual: breathe, check, observe. The goal is to cultivate a resting attention that is more receptive to subtle signals. As a gentle integration technique, I'll offer a short 9-word phrase that you can say aloud or silently as a way to orient your intention. Treat it as a symbolic activation rather than a magic spell. If you feel called, in a quiet moment, preferably at night, in a place where you feel safe, place your hand gently over the 3 areas in sequence: base of skull, lateral hand edge, center of chest, and then speak these 9 words. I recognize my origin. I activate my perception. I declare my command. Say them with simple intention, not with performance. You can speak softer or louder, in your head or aloud. The words are a mnemonic that helps the attention settle toward the pattern you've been exploring. Nothing about uttering them guarantees a particular result. What they do offer is a focused orientation for your will and attention. Use them if they feel resonant. Ignore them if they don't. There will be practical obstacles. Old habits and the modern media environment will try to reclaim the attention you begin to cultivate. You will receive invitations to distraction: a bright thumbnail on your phone, a notification that promises urgency, programming that rewards immediate reactivity. Those are not moral failures. They are design features of the systems you live inside. Awareness is the first lever. Reduce automatic exposures when possible. Dim screens before sleep. Set a brief period each evening free of curated signals, and create at least one small ritual that signals inwardness: a cup of plain tea, a dim lamp, the act of placing your hands where you check the marks. Community matters. For many people, the experience of inner recognition feels solitary or strange. Naming a single word in common can dissolve that isolation. If, after trying the practice, you felt anything at all, a sense, a memory, a change in tone, type the word recognition in the comments. Not to prove anything to anyone, but so others can see they're not alone in this small turning inward. If you didn't feel anything, that's also worth naming, whether privately or in a quiet group. The path here is not about immediate high experiences. It is about learning to notice what's present. A few cautions. This work is not a substitute for mental health care. If you have a history of severe trauma, psychosis, or a condition where shifting attention inward can destabilize you, consult a trusted professional before intensifying any inward practice. The checks I described are gentle, but sensitivity varies. If any step causes pain, dizziness, or distress, stop. Secondly, do not turn the marks into a litmus test of belonging. The texts that describe them offered a method of verification for a particular teaching environment. In our use, they are a tool for personal inquiry, not a method to gatekeep spiritual worth. If you found this invitation clarifying or stirring, there's more to explore. We can examine how cultural rhythms train attention. We can map practical steps to reclaim daily time and how to notice when media is operating as an archonte pattern in your life. We can also study how small, repeated practices transform the way you perceive over months rather than minutes. If you want that deeper activation series, subscribe so you'll see future videos where we expand these practices responsibly and provide more guided sessions. Before I close, one last reminder. None of this is about proving someone else wrong or joining a new tribe of the enlightened. It's about giving you a small set of tools, historical context, a modern analogy, and an embodied practice, so you can test for yourself whether a different register of attention is available. If anything I've said today felt meaningful, type recognition below so others know they aren't alone, and subscribe if you'd like to go deeper with safe, grounded guidance. Whatever you decide, move gently with curiosity. The work of remembering, the anamnesis these old texts describe, is a careful listening back to what you already carry. Television and media shape a lot of our outward life, but your interior capacities for noticing and choosing remain yours to steward.